Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. And today I am doing a video for you all on Jane Austen retellings. Actually, it's Pride and Prejudice retellings because all of these books retell the story of Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice is my second favorite Jane Austen book. My favorite is actually Persuasion, but Pride and Prejudice there's a reason why it keeps getting remade and retold over and over again. There are some really kind of universal themes in that story that really touch a lot of us. And so in the year 2019, I read quite a few retellings and really enjoyed all of them. And I wanted to dedicate a video to talking about those books and kind of giving you a little bit of books that I'm also looking forward to reading that are also Jane Austen retellings in 2020. So I hate to rank these books because I think that all of these retellings are actually quite good in their own way. But I am forcing myself to rank them. I'm forcing myself to rank them because, you know, if you don't have time to read all of these retellings, okay, it's always good to know which one do people consider kind of the best. So I'm going to go in order of which one I think more people need to pick up. So at the top of the list is Pride by Ibi Zoboi. I really loved this one. It's also the most recent Pride and Prejudice retelling that I have read. It is set in modern times, and the main character Elizabeth is Black. It's set in New York, and you're following this teenager who is looking at going to college the next year. And setting Pride and Prejudice at this age group worked really well for me. I really identified with the main character. At one point in the story, she visits a historically black college, and she, that visit to me, I just really connected to it, even though I did not go to a historically black college, but the experience of attending college and realizing for the first time that this is a place where you belong. And as a first generation college student, all those themes really hit my heart. And it is a book that tries to do quite a bit, and it's not a very long book. For me, it was successfully done, and I don't know if it's because one of the last Jane Austen retellings that I read, it just felt like it took a really nice it had a very nice and unique take on the story of Pride and Prejudice, which I know really well. I know a lot of people felt more iffy about it, but I think it's one that's worth a read. It's short, it's a fast read, and I think it is worth your time. Next book on my list is Pride and Prejudice and Other Flavors by Sonali. There was one thing in here that if you look up the reviews, it has gotten some criticism, and I agree with some of the criticism of it, but overall, this is a really great example of how you take the story of Pride and Prejudice and make it your own. It's not just about switching the ethnicity and the skin color of the main characters, but really giving it a new twist and not having to hit every beat in the Pride and Prejudice story, right? You can just take the general themes and adapt them into a different setting, and it could really work. And that is what Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors really does. There's also a significant focus on food in this one. The kind of Darcy character, well, okay, it's tricky. This one kind of inverts the gender roles of Darcy and Elizabeth. So it's more of the Elizabeth character, but it's the main male character in Pride and Prejudice and Other Flavors is a chef. And that plays an important part of who he is and an important part of the story, and I really enjoyed that. This was done really well, and as someone who is not big into cooking and all that stuff, I could really appreciate how food was used in this story really well. The characters in here are South Asian, and that plays a big part in there. They're also in the United States, and there's the themes of class is a huge one, and it's very explicitly dealt with here. And the way it, and class was also a big deal at Pride and Prejudice. I think people forget, like, even though Darcy and Elizabeth are in the similar social circles, that there was a significant kind of class and money issue there, which is dealt with very explicitly here. So I really, really recommend that one. And then next on the list is Ayesha, Last by Uzma Jalaluddin. I really enjoyed this book. It is taking the Pride and Prejudice story and making the characters Muslim Canadian. I really liked that. And again, this is another one of those cases where it's not like a perfect retelling. The story doesn't hit every beat in the Pride and Prejudice story, but it does a lot of those beats. In this book, Jalaluddin really does make the Pride and Prejudice story her own, adapting it to the Muslim characters and making that part feel very real to the audience, so that you're not just like making Darcy and Elizabeth Muslim. No, you are recreating that story and giving it a different setting, and there's just certain similarities in the stories. So I really love when authors can do that. And this was done also really, really well. If you're interested in especially reading more kind of diverse Pride and Prejudice retellings, I think these are all really good. And I think Ayesha at Last gives you a lot to think about in terms of Muslim communities in North America, and especially Muslim communities in Canada. Next on the list is a book that I don't own because I read it on ebook, and it's Heartstone by Elle, Katherine White. So the simplest way of telling you what this book is about is Pride and Prejudice with dragons. And it really is that's the best way to describe it, and I don't have a better way of saying it. It's a fantasy retelling of Pride and Prejudice, and that's the main difference here, the main twist. Other than that, the story does follow most of the beats of Pride and Prejudice, with the added fantasy element. But that was really fun. I read this for book club, and everyone in the book club really enjoyed it. Even people who had never read Pride and Prejudice really enjoyed this story. So if you're somebody who has not read Pride and Prejudice but is kind of more interested in the fantasy world and would like a taste of Pride and Prejudice, I think this is a good place to start. This is a series, and I do have book number 2 in the series on my bookshelves. It is Dragon Shadow, and I can't wait to read it. I don't know why I haven't yet gotten to it. Actually, I do know. It's because I have too many books on my TBR, but this book is definitely on my TBR. So if you're interested in a fantasy series using the story of Pride and Prejudice, I think this is a good one to go with. And then lastly, I have Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Seth Smith. So I am not a Jane Austen purist, as this list hopefully shows you. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies is a fun use of the Pride and Prejudice story, but it does adhere very strictly to the Pride and Prejudice story. There's a reason why when you look up the authors, it says Jane Austen and Seth Smith, is because like there are little chunks from Pride and Prejudice that are not rewritten and are just kind of stuck in the story. The only thing that Smith is adding is the zombies. And that's why this book would be like at the bottom of the list. This is the kind of book that you pick up if you're like, I want something that's not going to require a whole lot of brain function. I've already read Pride and Prejudice. Let's pick up the zombies. I have watched the movie, and I like the movie. The movie might be better than the book even. I think it might be better than the book. And because the visual part of like looking at the zombies, I think adds more to it. Because like the book just felt like I'm just rereading Pride and Prejudice with sections of zombies thrown in. But I really like the idea of Pride and Prejudice and zombies, so I'm putting it in this list. There's a few other books that I'm really interested in checking out. I have one that I picked up at the LA Festival of Books. This is Pride and Prometheus by John Kessel. So it's again this kind of sci-fi fantasy retelling of Jane Austen, and it looks like it's gonna be mixing in Pride and Prejudice and Frankenstein. We'll see. I'm a little bit iffy on how this one's going to turn out. But again, I'm not a Jane Austen purist, so I'm like okay with people taking whatever liberties they want with the story of Pride and Prejudice. I know, I don't remember the name of the book, but I know there's a Persuasion retelling coming up. I've seen a few Sense and Sensibility retellings. I just haven't read them, so I couldn't rank them in this list. But if you know of any other Jane Austen retellings, whether Pride and Prejudice or any of the other books, let me know down below, because these are books that I just love picking up and talking about, and I would love to add to that TBR, and then maybe at some point do kind of an update on this list and ranking all the retellings that I have read. But that is it for me. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to. All the links to my social media are down below. I am most active on Instagram and Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.